Hello, I would like to talk about assignment 4, which is the fiction short story, and the name of the story is She's the Bomb, written by T. Koroghesen Boyle in 2017. And the text is about growing up in a modern society where these institutions as education are trying to inflict your personal identity, and how hard it is to create this identity in a modern society where all these ping points as a education is. And that leads to the structure in the short story where there's like two parts, and it switches between those two. And the one part is from the protagonist point of view, where she's letting the feelings out, and there is this text message part in her part where she's texting to a person, and it could be her friend, um, where she expresses her feelings and what she are thinking. And an alternative possibility is that it could be a sign of she is bipolar, and the one she's texting with, or the one she's shown at texting, is the other side of her mind. So the one side could be her reason side, and the other could be this crazy side who just wants to let go of her feelings and how she feels. So I got an example at line 67, where there's this dialogue in this text message part where it says, "So I did it." Did what? Called in a bomb, and there are 3 question marks. Like, you there, and you're joking. So this is a sign of this dialogue between a side of reason, which could be a bipolar side of her own mind, or it could also be a friend of her who is actually checking in on her. And yeah. So back to the protagonist. She has been through the school system, and she's kind of tired of the way it is. So she drops out in college because she thinks Professor Dugan's class is hard, and she do not like the class. So therefore she skips his classes and is forced to drop out of college. And she's not very proud of this. She's actually embarrassed of it. And on line 97, where it shows that she's embarrassed, it's where she's going home, and I quote, "Going home and having to act as if everything was okay, and listen to her mother go on about how proud she was of her, the first in their family to graduate college, and and could she possibly know how much that meant to her?" This also shows that she's living inside this pride culture where her mother has a lot of faith in her, because she's actually breaking the mold on how things were before. And it's hard to create this identity when you have these expectations from your family. But in the meantime, this girl wants to create a life of her own, and maybe she's not. Maybe she's forced into doing the college, as the text describes later, that she actually met a boy she likes, which also is an element of growing up in a modern society as a girl, where there are these expectations to you. But actually, it's perfectly normal to find yourself in this identity crisis as a young person in the modern society. And you also see these elements of laziness, where she skips these classes, and these elements also show a kind of laziness in her life, which also uh, gets back to this identity crisis she's in, because it's hard to make rational choices when you don't know who you are or how you have to act in front of everybody else. And that leads us back to how this identity crisis started. And the protagonist has this obsession with bombs, and it could be the thrill of doing something forbidden, which also could be seen in crime, where some people are making robberies just for the thrill. And the protagonists have this example at page 4 at line 136, when she says, and I quote, "When you have a lawyer and have to go to court, and when the memory of that night at graduation, where they traced her calls and came up the aisle and took her away in handcuffs, is like a slow drip of acid every minute of every day she has her eyes open." And this could be a fundamental in her identity crisis, because she doesn't know how to act. And she's not necessarily accepted by her mom, which is shown at line 135, where, and I quote, "You can't afford any irony when your mother looks at you like she wants to cut you up into small pieces and feed you to the sharks." And precisely this example shows how embarrassed she is in front of her mom. And that could be a fundamental on this identity crisis, and why she skips classes and why she drops out of college. Another fundamental of her identity crisis is found in the lines 29 to 55, where at line 51 there is an example, and I quote, "But there is a fatality, a feeling so irresistible and inevitable that it has the force of doom, which almost invariably compels human beings to linger around and haunt, ghost-like, the spot where some great and marked event had given the color to their lifetime." Quote end. And this quote is from the what's this called? It's called The Scarlet Letter, where it is a symbol. This quote is a symbol of the protagonist in the novel is trying to find the meaning of life, which can be referred back to the protagonist of She's the Bomb, the short story She's the Bomb, where the protagonist also is being in the middle of an identity crisis and is trying to find the meaning of life. And this takes us to the moral of the short story, and to sum it up, it is to take responsibility of your life, and these lies that the protagonist is saying to her mother only creates more lies, which doesn't create. You cannot create an identity on lies. And I've chosen to say that the theme of the short story is growing up and this identity crisis.